Hello everyone, welcome to Brain Blitz Audios. As we continue our successful series of memory hacks, today we're going to be teaching you another very effective way in order to achieve a trained memory. In the last episode, we've talked about the link method of memory and how conscious associations helped us to improve our memory to a great extent. We'll be using conscious associations here as well, however, in a different sense. Today, we'll be looking at the PEG method of memory. Let's begin, shall we? Let's start with a test. Take 3 minutes by pausing this video to try and memorize the 20 objects listed here along with their given serial numbers. 1 headphones, 2 helicopter, 3 bulb, 4 pen, 5 camera, 6 megaphone, 7 chair, 8 donkey, 9 tape, 10 thermometer, 11 socks, 12 vase, 13 door, 14 comb, 15 book, 16 pancake, 17 eraser, 18 keyboard, 19 flower, 20 cap. So after you've paused and now you've checked it out, the 20 objects. Now try to list them without looking at the screen. Give yourself 5 points for every object that you put with its correct number. Note, you must not only remember the object, but also the number assigned to that object. So here are the 20 objects once again. You can pause the video now and try out this test. It was hard, wasn't it? Because you had to remember the object and the number associated to it. Numbers are very hard to remember, especially because they're very abstract. They don't mean something to you. Well, that's all about to change, because today we'll be talking about the PEG method of memory. So what this method does, it uses illogical mental images to convert numbers into objects for easier counting. So we take a number, and then after applying the PEG method, it will be converted to an object of your choice. And that object can be used for easier counting using conscious illogical associations. And it uses a very simple phonetic alphabet, an alphabet consisting of sounds. And this alphabet has only 10 sounds for the digits 0 to 9. And we use this phonetic alphabet to form the pegs, which we use to memorize any numbered list. So if you want to remember the number along with the object, then you can use the PEG method. And what are the advantages of using a PEG method? It can be used for memorizing procedural steps, checklists, bullet points, etc. Suppose you're a science student and you want to remember the exact procedure for an experiment. Well, you can use the PEG method. You can take number 1 and associate its PEG word with the task that you're supposed to do in step 1. Similarly, for step 2, you can do that, and you can do it for step 3, 4, 5 until the number of steps that you totally have, and it will come back to you automatically while you're doing the experiment. If you go over your PEG words, you can understand and you can remember which step means what and where should you apply that step. So that is the reason why the PEG method is important. It is needed in order to memorize ordered lists in an easy way. Now, how do you PEG and how do you use this PEG method? Here are our steps. Step number 1. Remember the consonant sound assigned for the particular digit. So we'll give you the 10 consonant sounds, the phonetic alphabet, and each one refers to a digit, such as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 0, the 10 digits. So you need to remember which consonant sound is assigned for which digit. So if you know that first, then you can form your pegs. The second task is to make a word that contains the consonant sound of the digit or digits involved. So in this case, if, for example, you have the number 11 and say the sound for 1 is t, the t sound, then you have to make a word such as taught, which means a baby. So the word taught would represent the number 11 because it has the t sound 2 times, and that represents to you the number 11. So you have to make the peg words which contain the consonant sound inside it. So using the peg word, you can make the number turn into an object for your last step, which is to associate the peg word to the object or the step which you need to remember. In the last episode, we've talked about how to form illogical associations. So you can use that in order to connect your peg word and your object. So these are the 3 easy steps by which you can peg your ordered list in your memory. And if you do this according to the letter, then you can memorize any kind of pegged lists. Any kind of ordered lists will be easy to remember. Now, you might be curious about the 10 consonant sounds, right? Let's jump right in. This is the phonetic alphabet, which you need to remember for each of the digits. For the number 1, we usually use the t sound to represent it. So anytime you hear a t sound in the peg word, you will know that the digit represented by that sound is the number 1. And you can remember it by noting that the uppercase T, capital T, has 1 downstroke. And that is how you remember it. For the number 2, we use the phonetic sound n. It's the N sound that we use to remember the number 2. And in order to remember that sound, you can see that the lowercase n has 2 downstrokes, 1 and 2. So you can imagine that the lowercase n has 2 downstrokes, and therefore the n sound is for the number 2. For the number 3, we use the sound. So again, here we use the same principle in order to remember. Lowercase m has 3 downstrokes. Therefore, the sound represents the number 3. For the number 4, we use the r sound. And for this sound, in order to remember it, we can think of it as the last sound of the word 4. So final sound of the digit 4 is R. So the R sound is used to represent the digit 4. For the number 5, we use the L sound, the L sound. And in order to remember this, you can think of the number 5 as you see in the elevators as made up of combining 3 letters of L. So 3 L's, when you combine together, you can form the digit 5. So that's how you associate the L sound to number 5. For the digit 6, we use the J sound. Now, note that not just J can be used, we can also use the G sound and the CH sound, etc. So the sound is most important. The sound that we use when you use the word J, as in juice, so the J sound. So in order to remember that the J sound is associated with the number 6, you can think of the letter J when getting inverted resembles the digit 6. So when we write J with some stretch of your imagination, you can think of it as the inverse of the digit 6. Now, what about the number 7? For 7, we use the K sound. Now, this can be found in the letter K or hard C, such as come, and then for other words, such as go. Now, all of these use the same sound, which is the k sound. Now, in order to remember that the k sound is representing the number 7, we can think of the letter K being made using two sevens. One 7 is right side up, and the other 7 is upside down. So when we do that, with a little stretch of our imagination, you will notice that it forms the letter K. Now for the digit 8, we use the F sound. Now, the reason why we do that, and the reason that we can use to remember that the F sound is for the digit 8, is the fact that cursive F resembles the number 8. So F, when written in cursive, resembles the digit 8. For the digit 9, we use the P sound. The P sound is originated from letters such as P or B. And in order to remember that the P sound represents the digit 9, we can think of the letter P as an inverse form of the digit 9. So if the letter P is inverted, it resembles the digit 9 when you can stretch your imagination. And finally, the digit 0 has the Z sound. And this is pretty easy. You know that the first sound of the digit 0 is Z. So that can help you remember that the Z sound is used for remembering the digit 0. Now, if you can think of it like this, then we have a mnemonic for you in order to remember this sounds in this order. 10 more logic Fips. So T represents 1, N represents 2, the sound represents 3, the sound represents 4, the sound represents 5, the J sound represents 6, the K sound represents 7, the F sound represents 8, the P sound represents 9, and the Z sound represents 0. Now, see that the uppercase T has one downstroke that represents 1. Lowercase n has 1, 2 downstrokes, so that represents the number 2. For M, it is 3 downstrokes, so the number which the sound represents is 3. For the number 4, when written out in English, is FOUR, and the last sound is the sound. So therefore, the final sound of the digit 4 is the sound. So it is used to represent 4. Now, imagine that this is one L, this is another L, and this is a third L. So this can be combined to form this crude version of the number 5. We usually see this version in elevators. So therefore, the sound represents the number 5. For the number 6, the letter J, if I use a little bit of stretch of my imaginations, then it turns out that this is close enough to the number 6. So J, the J sound, represents the number 6. The letter K, or the K sound, represents the number 7. So 1 7 right side up, another 7 which is upside down like this would represent a K. So the letter K represents the number 7. Now remember that the number 8 is represented by the F sound. Well, if you've written cursive, you know that F looks something like this, and this version of F is similar to the number 8. Notice the two loops, and that's why we can use this in order to remember that the F sound is used to represent the number 8. For the number 9, notice that 9, when you invert it, you place it in a mirror, it looks something like this. So that is the letter P. So the P sound would represent the number 9. And 0, when written out in English, has its first sound as Z. So the Z sound represents the number 0. So that is how you can use your imagination in order to associate each digit of the Arabic numerals with their respective consonant sound. So that is the first part of the peg method of memory. Now, what we need to do is we need to create some peg words which have these consonant sounds. Now, in order to show you this in action, remember that earlier test? I've taken the first 5 objects of that list, and now I will show you how you can use the peg method in order to remember these. So the number 1 has the sound T. So the digit 1 has T sound. So we need to have a word which contains only this consonant sound and which is also very easy to picturize in your head. Now, we can use the word tie in this case. Note that you can form your own peg words by sitting down and writing down the pegs up to 100. But this is the way you should form a peg. Simply note the sound. Now, if, for example, the number was 22, then you will have 2 N's, and you should make a word which has 2 N sounds. For example, none or noon, etc. So for the letter 1, I use the peg word tie. Now, the next step is to connect the word tie to our object or step, which in this case, the object is a headphone. So you can think of it in this way. You're wearing your headphone instead of your tie to work. That should serve as a sample illogical association. So here's your headphone, you're using it as a tie in between your coats, etc. So that is how you can picturize it. Now see that in your mind's eye, and you can always you have connected the first number, which is 1, to the first object, which is headphones. Now, let's look at the second digit. So here it's the number 2. Number 2 has the N sound. So we need to find a word with 1 N sound inside it. So in my case, I use the word Noah. Now, Noah is the name of a biblical character, and I use an old man with a flowing beard sitting on an ark, which is a ship. So an old man sitting on a ship in a storm is what I think of the number 2, because this word has only 1 N sound and it makes it easy for picturization. You can have other words such as new or now or something like that. So now what I should do is I should connect helicopter with Noah. You can imagine Noah riding on a helicopter which is about to sink instead of a ship, or you can imagine a helicopter with a white beard sitting on a ship. So either way, it would work to become an illogical association. So this is actually quite fun because you can spend your time creating illogical associations, or you can make them as fast as possible with practice so that you can remember stuffs easily. Now, number 3, it has the sound m. So we need to find a word which has the sound. Now for the number 3, I use the word meow. So I know that meow means the cry of a cat. So when I think of the number 3, I always think of a good old cat. For me, the cat Garfield comes into picture when I think of the number 3. So I use that image. Maybe you can have something else, such as Ma, which remembers your own mother, or Jack Ma, for instance. So you can have any image which is relevant to you, and you can use it as your peg word. So now the next step is to connect meow to our object, which is bulb. So I imagine Garfield being plugged to a socket, and then the switch turns on and he glows in sunshine. So he glows. So that is my illogical image Of course, it's just a sample. You can try yourself with your own peg word and your own illogical association. Now, the number 4 has the sound R. It's the R sound that represents the number 4. Now, to find a word which has the R sound, I use the word rye. Now, rye is usually found in rye bread. So it's a sort of cereal. So I use a slice of bread in order to connect the number 4. So whenever I think of the number 4, I always think of a slice of rye bread. Now I need to connect rye to my object, which is pen. Now that should be pretty easy. You can think of eating your sandwich, which has pens instead of rye bread, or you can imagine yourself writing with a rye bread instead of a pen. Either way, it would create an illogical association. So that concludes 4. Similarly, number 5. This has the sound, and the word which I can think of for the number 5 is the word law. Now, the word law by itself cannot be imagined. However, there are many accessories such as, say, a judge or a policeman who are representatives of the law. So I personally use a judge who beats on his gavel and says, order, order. So that's what's my image of the number 5. So that's my peg word, law. Now you need to connect law to a camera. So what I would do is I would imagine a camera beating down with his gavel and saying, order, order. You can also imagine a judge using a camera instead of a gavel in order to shout order, order. So either way, you can get an illogical association. The main point is 1, identify the consonant sounds in the digit. Number 2, you need to find your correct peg word. And 3, use the peg word and associate it with the object or step that you want to remember. So if you check out these 3 steps, you use these 3 steps, then you can always remember ordered lists in an easy way. And this is very, very effective. So you need to first remember that phonetic alphabet to heart until it becomes second nature. And if you do that and you use the correct peg words, and I suggest you create a standard list of peg words for each of the time that you're using this. So I suggest you create peg words as a standard for yourself. So use the same peg words every time. And then you can create wonders by remembering more than your peers. So that is the main idea behind this episode. In order to show you how can you remember ordered lists and you can remember procedures and steps, etc., by using the peg method of memory. However, the consonant phonetic alphabet by itself is way more powerful than just using for peg words. Take, for instance, you want to remember this long digit number, 161-803-39-8875, 9648-533-212-331-00184. I mean, these are long digit numbers. How do you remember long digit numbers? Well, that's the subject for our next video. So don't forget to wait for that video. So in order to receive it, you can subscribe to our channel, Brain Blitz Audios, and hit that notifications button so that you don't miss this episode when it's on air. You can also hit that notifications button in order to receive other useful and interesting content that comes out of Brain Blitz Audios, like for instance mind maps, which helps you remember your lessons, and then NEET preparation, which helps you to practice a lot of questions. And then we have English lessons, which have our famous IPA episode of pronunciation. So we have a lot of educational content in our kitty, so you can subscribe to our channel and avail yourself of these useful and interesting content. Until the next episode of Memory Hacks, take care, stay safe, practice well, and use it in your daily life. Use the PEG system, use the link system, use all of the tips that we've said, and you're sure and will guarantee you the superpower memory that you've been claiming for. So until the next episode, take care, stay safe, bye-bye for now.